Hey folks, welcome back to another Sten Reacts segment. Mike Stenhouse here in the Bourbon Bar with a reminder, charred oak tumbler is the best way to drink your favorite whiskey or bourbon. I've even got my Hill Rock Distillery cap on today. But today, in this movie I'm about to review, they actually had a shared whiskey at the end together with Mother Cabrini. So we're going to deviate a little bit from my typical sports or political commentary reactions, and I'm going to react to a movie. As you know, on my In the Dugout show, I had a segment for a while, patriotism in the Bible, and I'm a religious guy. I'm a Catholic guy. Well, I'm a faithful guy. I'm a little down on religion right now, but I have a very strong Christian faith. And I really was inspired, as you'll hear, from a very interesting movie, pros and cons for sure, but the movie Cabrini. So I'm going to react to that. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to first set it up a little bit. Then we're going to watch the trailer together. I'll stop it and comment here or there, and then I'll make a few other comments afterwards, as long as giving you my overall rating on the movie. All right. So the movie Cabrini, which I'm not gonna play the trailer yet, but here it is about a Mother Cabrini who came over from Italy as a nun and did just amazing things here in America. And she built an empire, as the movie will describe. It's produced and distributed by Angel Studios. They're kind of the new faith-based movie studio operation that's causing quite a stir. No more of this trashy woke content. Good, clean, wholesome family stuff, but not sappy stuff, right? Hard-hitting documentaries and movies. You probably know Angel Studios for the series The Chosen, which is one of the finest series I've ever watched. I can't wait to see season 4. Sound of Freedom, which got a lot of acclaim earlier this year, was produced by Angel Studios. Angel Studios is largely made up of religious conservatives, if you will, from Mark Wahlberg, the actor, to Neil McDonough. You probably know him, the blonde, blue-haired guy. Jonathan Roumie, who played Jesus Christ in The Chosen. So this Angel Studios is really shaking up the film industry by showing that you don't need to do all this filth, perverted stuff in order to put together a good movie. That good, solid, traditional, family-based entertainment is the way to go. The movie Cabrini is a biopic. It's an amazing story on the legacy of the Italian nun Francesca Xavier Cabrini, otherwise known as Mother Cabrini. The movie itself is slow-paced, emotionally compelling, as I'll get to. So let's just keep it at that, and let's go ahead and watch the trailer, and we'll watch and listen, and I'll stop along the way.
Open your eyes.
I think I missed that. Let's go back a few seconds.
Open your eyes.
This is America, the greatest nation on earth, where rats have it better than Italian children.
Where rats have it better than Italian children. So the scene is, I believe, the 1890s in New York. The flood of Italian immigrants through Ellis Island, legal immigrants, I might add. We'll get into that later because there is a strong immigration message in this movie. But that's the scene. And apparently, I read afterwards, I don't think they explained it well in the movie, but apparently yellow fever at the time, this is the 1890s, had swept through some of the poorer neighborhoods and had taken the lives of many, many Italian mothers and fathers, leaving many Italian children who didn't speak English, didn't know the country, completely parentless, orphans, in other words, in this 5 Points area of old New York and southern Manhattan. And this is where Mother Cabrini was sent to try to provide some love and some care by the Pope, Italian, of course, by the Italian Pope.
If we are to build an empire of hope, we must first conquer New York.
Our New York.
John Lithgow right there. I didn't recognize him at first, but John Lithgow is the mayor of New York. He's a WASP. I don't know if he's Irish or not, but he's a WASP. And boy, did they, back then, boy, did they hate the Italians. More about that shortly.
Being threatened by a wave of brown-skinned filth.
They just keep coming. We ought to ship them all back.
They just keep coming. We're to ship them all back. Sound familiar to today? So again, let me stop here on the immigration issue for a second, since it came up here in the trailer. I didn't realize it was this up front. Very strong immigration message in this movie. Now, of course, they're talking about legal immigration. People came from Europe through Ellis Island and the Statue of Liberty and all that, and were here legally. But they came here, yes, just like the immigrants, the illegal immigrants of today, yes, and the legal immigrants. They're often looking for a better life here in America, but they came legally. But unlike now, the immigrants back then weren't expecting government handouts. There were no government handouts to hand out back then, as it turned out. You couldn't even get a place to live. You couldn't even get a bite to eat. There was no SNAP cards. There was nothing like that. There was no public assistance for the Italian. And that's the line you heard from Mother Cabrini, that the Italian children in this slum area of New York, this 5 Points area, had it worse than rats in the area. And many of them did live in underground sewer systems. Let's go back and keep going.
We have to show America we are all people of dignity.
All right, now I'm not going to give it a 10 out of 10. I'll give you my rating at the end, but a lot of this is true. Beautifully rendered. I'll talk about that. Outstanding cast. Yes, the acting was amazing. A gamut of emotions. Yes, I will definitely talk to you about that shortly.
I want to build an orphanage and give the abandoned children the love they so badly need.
If you're asking my permission, no. Your mission is over, Mother.
My mission is barely begun.
She had this vision. This little lowly nun in a town called Catugno, Italy, had this vision, went to the Pope. I want to build a system of orphanages and care for young people starting in China, spreading from the east to the west, worldwide empire of Catholic orphanages. The Pope said, how about you start in New York City? And that's what happened.
This is a beautiful place to live in. Now we need to fill it with children.
Be careful. This place will eat you alive.
You're under arrest. Even the Pope cannot protect you from what may come.
You have to.
The corruption, both in the Catholic Church. Look, Angel Studios people are Catholics, but they didn't hold back if the Catholic Church and the Archbishop in this case needed criticism. They basically criticized them by the way they portrayed them in this movie. So this is what made it such an interesting movie to me. It was not a biased, feel good, promote Catholicism movie. This is a movie about how Mother Cabrini overcame corruption in New York City government, overcame corruption and pushback in the Catholic Church, and still indeed built that empire she originally envisioned. And she did it as a sickly, small little woman with major lung issues.
Learn to face your fears.
There's also the crime and the prostitution and everything else in that area of New York that she had to deal with and fight through.
Who the hell do you think you are?
I am a woman, and I am Italian. We are all the same, all human beings.
The actress is a female actress known well in Italy.
I believe I'm being threatened by a nun.
Most of these Italians are already Americans. You have an election coming up, do you not?
She learns politics very quickly by the end of the movie, this scene here.
And I thought you were new at this.
Che un solo, piccolo gesto d'amore può cambiare ogni cosa.
Now you see there the International Women's Day. We'll talk about that. Well, I'll talk about that in just a second. So the movie, the trailer was good. The movie though was very slow paced. You could almost envision, I mean, there were a few times like I was, a little bored even, like, where's this all going? But the movie picks up and it certainly grabs your attention despite its slow pace. But I'll tell you what, by the end of the movie and in the days afterwards, emotionally powerful, emotionally compelling. I had a tear in my eye at the end of the movie when they talked about all the unbelievable accomplishments that Mother Cabrini overcame. The movie shows her overcoming her first big hurdle with the church and the politics of New York. And then after that, boom, she just exploded and built her empire, which I won't describe to you. I don't want to ruin too much of it. Definitely a movie you could question where it was going, whether it was going to keep your interest in the beginning. But let me tell you what, for a slow-paced movie, and ended up being, for me at least, a truly inspiring experience. The cinematography was absolutely stunning and different. I mean, some of the beautiful vistas of nature in New York City and whatnot. The artistically haunting, using a lot of shadows and dark areas. So I will call it artistically haunting and shadowy visuals, kind of set the tone for the movie. All the obstacles, the negative, corrupt obstacles, evil obstacles that Cabrini had to overcome. So I think visually that it set the tone properly. And one thing my wife told me, which I agree with, the camera work, the motion of the cameras, the way it would get real close, it almost felt like in many of the scenes you were the one sitting across from the mayor or from Mother Cabrini. You really felt like you were there and could feel the intensity and see exactly how someone sitting there would do it. So, and I've read a few reviews on it, and everybody agrees that the cinematography and the visual aspects of this movie were absolutely stunning. And I have to agree with that. Definitely something I noticed without being a film critic. Now, this movie was released on two very special, to coincide with two special occasions. Of course, it was released during the middle of Lent here in the Catholic religion as we work our 40 days from Ash Wednesday up to Easter. It was also released on March 8th, which was International Women's Day. And as much as this was a story about the success and the amazing life of Mother Cabrini, it was also a story about what some people call she was the first modern feminist, someone who fought for women's rights, who would not allow discrimination against her as a woman, a step in the way. She overcame it. She fought against men, and she fought for at least her rights as a woman to pursue her dreams and her vision. So I understand how they kind of make that feminism connection here. It wasn't overt in the movie. That wasn't ever the stated purpose, but overcoming discrimination of women certainly was, not modern feminism in any way. So as that image I showed you, it honors the spirit of women and the power of a dream, no matter who you are, male or female, obviously. So I thought that was very interesting. The immigration question was very clear throughout. These Italian children who were orphaned and had nobody to turn to, living in the streets. I'm talking about, 7, 8-year-old kids living with young teenagers, trying to look out for each other, living in sewers and sewer systems and rat holes and under buildings and in corners. Oh God, it was very disturbing, the imagery there, but accurate, as you could imagine how life was back in the 1890s in a poor section of town that had no water, no running water, no sewer system, not even houses for these kids, so you can get all that. But again, the differences, but you heard in the trailer, they talked about the filth of these people. A lot of the same terms we hear from, you know, radical people here in America. Look, illegal immigration should not be tolerated the way it's happening, but no reason to insult the people unless they are criminals, right, or something like that, drug dealers or whatnot. But boy, the level of hate and animosity towards Italians at that time was overwhelming, way more so than if anybody in this country feels about illegal immigrants coming into America in modern day feel. I'm half Italian. I never realized that I know Italians had it tough when they first came here, but I never realized there was this overt hate by what I would describe as WASPs. I don't know if it was the Irish as much. Maybe the Irish had just as much disdain, but the Irish had their problems when they first came to America as well. So I don't know who was in power in New York at the time. I'm assuming it was WASPs, from descendants from English, immigrants back in the Revolutionary days and after. But boy, the Italians were looked up. I mean, pure racism against Italians. And I was at a meeting not too long ago where one of my Black friends spoke about racism in America, and somebody spoke up. Do you understand the level of racism? I'm Italian. Do you ever, this person said, you realize the racism that was against Italians? And he said, no. And I kind of said to myself, no. In this movie, you see it. All right, the final area I want to get into on this is the question of religiosity. Was this yet just another sappy, oh, God is great, kind of movie? No, not at all. Not at all. And I think that's where the producers of this movie did such a good job. They're reaching out to audiences, obviously beyond the traditional conservative Catholic or Christian population. Like we said earlier, they're trying to appeal to probably center to left wing feminists by positioning Mother Cabrini as one of the world's first feminists, if you would, quote. And they're also trying not to turn away those who are not overly religious or have a really strong faith. Obviously, the movie is steeped in Catholic imagery when you're talking about the Pope at the Vatican and you're talking about the Archbishop of New York and the star, of the movie, the protagonist of the movie is a nun, Mother Cabrini herself. But this was not a sappy religious production. They struck an amazing balance. Must have been hard for them, but they struck an amazing balance between faith, society as a whole, the church, politics, and human nature. It was very light on prayer. There was not a lot of that, oh, God is great kind of stuff. There was not even, I don't remember her praying in the whole thing. She must have. I mean, I know they said grace a few times and prayed over dead bodies, but it wasn't like, hey, I prayed for a miracle and God delivered. That was not the the main storyline here. As a I've read some secular critics have given it high marks, again, because it was not overly religious or Christian based. As I mentioned earlier, it did do to me what I thought was some very open and clear criticism of the church, of the Archbishop, for their corruption and their politics. But of course, for Catholics and Christians, there were plenty of subtleties in there. And again, the Catholic imagery was everywhere, and including some amazing cinematography, as I mentioned earlier. So there was a lot for Christians and Catholics to like too. So overall, how do I feel about it? Even if you're not religious, you should see Cabrini. It's just an amazing human story, regardless of whether or not she was a nun, regardless of whether or not she was Catholic. It's an amazing, I'm not going to tell you now, but when they show you at the end of the movie, after she overcame the first hurdle in New York, what she was able to build after that, it's stunning. It's got to be one of the greatest stories ever. She ended up being, Cabrini, the first. She became a naturalized U.S. citizen after maybe 10 years here in America, 15. She became the first American to be a saint, to become a saint in the Catholic Church. And Colorado, I read. Colorado, in its political correctness, changed away from Columbus Day and they renamed it Cabrini Day. There are Cabrini schools. You've heard of Cabrini Green in Chicago. Now, that turned into a slum, a drug-ridden, crime-infested slum. But that was Mother Cabrini, part of her work, part of her empire. But when I first left the movie, like I said, it was a little slow-paced. It hadn't set in yet. And you're used to going to the movies and getting exhilarated at the movies. And it didn't give you that then until the very end. And so I was thinking 6.5, 7. But a few days later now, I've thought about this movie a lot, and I have been inspired by it after the fact, post facto. I'm now up to an 8, 8.5 on it. It was so well produced, acted so well, the cinematography so good, the story so amazing, that it more than makes up for its relatively slow pace. So I'm going to give it an 8, an 8.5. And again, Catholic or not, Christian or not, religious or not, it's a story of human perseverance, despite whatever feminist or religious or immigration angles you want to play on it. It is a fantastic story of human success. So anyway, that's my reaction to Cabrini. I don't know, I'll do many more movies, but I just felt compelled to do this one. And remember, you can watch all my Sten React segments, politics, sports, whatever else. Go to oceanstatecurrent.com, click watch from the top menu item, and then click Sten Reacts from the drop-down menu. So, from the Bourbon Bar, reminding you to always drink in moderation. And I forgot to say, for this, I brought out my St. Michael's pendant. For obvious reasons, Archangel Michael is one of my favorites, being my namesake. But for the Bourbon Bar, Mike Stenhouse out. We'll see you next reaction.